Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of People Talk. We should be live through to Facebook, and I'd like to thank everybody who's already joining into the Zoom. The last time we had it, which was 2 weeks ago, we had the option for people to join us in the Zoom, and a lot of people took that up, and I think it was quite a successful thing. We're doing it again this week, so we're offering people the opportunity to come to Zoom, or you can join me, as you probably already have, on Facebook. The advantage of coming through to the Zoom is that you can ask your questions live and a little bit quicker. But still, if you join on the Facebook channel, there's no problem. We'll try and pick up at all, as usual. Last week, I had a break. I was off for a break. I took 1 week off. And that was because, and we'll probably touch on it today when we talk about some aspects of what we're going to converse about. I took a week off because I was tired. I know it's just sitting down and talking at a screen for a couple of minutes, but it is actually quite difficult to arrange these things and to get these things organized, to get the caliber of guests that I've always been blessed to have, including today, and to, ask them for their time. I don't pay them, so it's great that they turn up and they do this. And so I needed a break last week, and that's what I had. So this week, we're back, and I think we're very much talking about a very important topic as well, which often, we don't link the two together. And I think it's very important that we do. However, as I've done in the past, I'd like to just make a quick mention about things that have come onto my radar since the last time we spoke. And I think everything else that has happened has more or less been superseded by the death of our King Chikala. When he passed away, for us, it was seismic. And I've looked at the sort of response and the sort of outpouring from the media, black, white, everybody in between. And I think the significance is really there. And I remember having a conversation many, many years ago with a gentleman on Facebook. And he was contending that, role models don't really have any benefit. They don't benefit anyone. They don't do anything because it's still down to the person to act or not to act. And I disagreed vehemently. And I think people like these actors who go out and they do these roles, these seismic roles, who bring a whole new dimension to our way of thinking, to make us see ourselves, because that's what film does. Film does, it transports you to a different place and it makes you feel a part of it. And yeah, we know Wakanda isn't real, but every time I watched it, and I've probably watched it north of 5 or 6 times, I kept saying to myself, what if? And it's that what if that helps to drive people onto the next level in whatever we're going to do. So we certainly thank him for his service and all that. But, it's September and we've been in quote unquote lockdown since March of this year. I've been working from home since March the 19th. And I've not really seen much to change in terms of coming out of lockdown. And as things have changed, as things have moved, certain topics have shifted. And the topics we're going to talk about today, we're going to be looking at the financial and the mental health impact of the COVID pandemic. For me, they are linked. They are absolutely linked. And I think I'll start off just by sharing something about myself, because hopefully we'll pick this up later on in the program when we're talking about mental health. So I consider myself mentally strong. I don't think of myself as being stressed. I have a run-of-the-mill job. I have a business or two. I get on with it. But I think over the last 4 weeks, I've become aware that just getting on with it sometimes is not enough. And that's what prompted me to start thinking about this show, because very, very much, and again, we're going to talk a little bit about men and how men really don't think about things about the health concerns, especially their mental health concerns. It just occurred to me that I had just been getting on, and I didn't even notice that I was probably under a great deal of stress. And quite recently, there's been a lot of talk about men's mental health. I know about 2 years ago, I started a series of talks called Let's Talk About Whatever. and we started with men's mental health. And so the whole discussion around men's mental health is important to me, but it is equally important to me that we're talking about the mental health of our community, yeah, and the impact that COVID may have had through the impact that it has through finances. So with all that said, I have been blessed again for, I don't know, I think this is the 20th week or something like that, that I brought together a team of people who, you know, we always say whenever more people are gathered, there's no chance you can know as much as all of them. And we will just continue to learn today. And so as I normally my custom, I'll ask them all to unmute themselves, and I will ask them to introduce themselves in the order that they joined me today. That is a normal custom. So Charmaine Simpson, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
So greetings everybody. My name is Charmaine Simpson. I am a personal financial coach and a financial educator. I've been doing that for a number of years now. I'm also a historian. I work with my company that I run with my husband, Black History Studies, and I very community focused person, and you're going to hear from me throughout this presentation. So yeah, short introduction to me.
No problem at all. David, could you unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Frederick, and I'm the founder of Marcus Bishop Associates Chartered Accountancy Firm. We were 25 years old on the 19th of June this year, and I now specialize in probate and enjoy helping clients manage their finances tax efficiently for life certainties and uncertainties as we've just experienced. I've been in the accountancy game for about 35 years, and allied to that, I'm also an author. And as I said to Paul earlier on, my latest publication was Christians and Money, Volume 1 and 2. And I have a financial column I write in Southeast 21 and 22 magazine in South London in Dulwich for the last 10 years. And that's me. Good to be here.
Thank you very much. Sherrine, unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Sherrine Barrowes. I am a psychotherapist. I'm one-to-one trained, as well as I'm trained in family therapy dialogically. I hope to do good work in the community. That's why I'm here.
And last but certainly not least, Marisha, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Marisha Stevenson. I'm a business and finance strategist. I've been in banking, finance, and worked in that world for 20 years or so. I'm also a broadcaster and host a show called The Financial Style, which is all about money and business. And I'm also a wealth coach, helping people to achieve their financial goals, whatever they may be.
You know, just before we really dive into it, what has also always been the case whenever I've had these shows is that I find that the people who I'm talking to, they're never just one thing. And that's to say that they're involved in their communities and they're really working quite strongly in a number of areas. And it really talks to the nature of the type of people that we're working with. But let's look at what we're talking about. So when COVID happened, I think probably the most instant reaction was that we went into lockdown. And so lockdown simply meant we couldn't go out to work. And there were a number of initiatives that the government put in place to, I don't know, see people through that period of time. The reason why I'm doing the show now is that that period of time is more or less coming to an end in many of the areas that they've done. And that's what we want to start and discuss. We want to discuss about, you know, did people take advantage of the stuff? Where are we now? What's left? What is there left? Do we know anything else that people can still do? Because let's be realistic. For some communities, we're not rushing back out to work. Yeah, we're not rushing back out there. So is there anything still out there? And we also want to look at what has been the impact in the practice of the 4 people that are on my panel today, in their work, in their day-to-day work. We want to discuss more or less what's happening. What are they hearing? What are they feeling? What's the sort of stuff? And I'm going to start with you, Charmaine, because I know a lot about the work you do in terms of trying to, and you know, David alluded to this, and I think Marisha as well, prepare people for what's coming, but it's here. Yeah. So the preparation time, it's here. Talk to me about what you've heard in the community in terms of the sort of impact from a financial point of view that people are talking about.
So when lockdown came, I was asked to do a presentation by the Sister Space to talk about financial anxiety, because a lot of people are going through financial anxiety at this moment, thinking about their finance, what they're going to do, they're home, they're not working. So I basically wrote a presentation and I delivered that. And that's the way I got to find out from the community how people are thinking. And a lot of people were unprepared and justifiably scared because they have no ways of generating income. They didn't have any savings, no backup plan. And this is what was happening in March. And I got a lot of people wanting to sit down with myself, looking at their finances, how they're going to pay their mortgage, how they're going to pay their bills, because they weren't adequately planning for these things. And as part of being a financial coach and a financial planner, is we need to be planning for all of these eventualities. So I've been talking in the community for years, telling people to put down your money, save your money. Our parents used to talk about having a rainy day fund, but a lot of us have forgotten that. It's just about spend now and save later. It's never going to happen. And I was saying to people that when COVID came in and the lockdown came in, I had 4 streams of income that went down to 2. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But then I had the privilege of having 4. But a lot of people didn't have that before. And I was saying, if you got 1 stream of income and that's now cut, what is your next step? So I was going out and speaking to people about not just relying on one source of income, looking at your finances, where can you make any savings? And it's not just all been doom and gloom. It's people have actually started businesses during this period of time, which has been a good thing to see. And people are now starting to have conversations with their partner about their finances, putting things in place. So that's some of the information that I got from speaking to people on a day-to-day basis. Some people are looking at it as doom and gloom, but some people saw the opportunities in this moment of time.
David, I could see you nodding furiously at some of the stuff Charmaine was saying. When we had a conversation, and I'm going to go in defense of the people who were caught unawares. Look, in the first weeks, we had massive, large companies with expensive accountants like you on their books collapsing. So what says the small guy? Why should we have been more prepared?
Because we know whenever there's a cough, we catch pneumonia, and small companies, if you look historically through economic downturns, large companies often use these periods to bail out or to restructure. And because most companies or large companies are full of debt, and I think since about 1979 or 80, we've had this debt culture. And then Charmaine hit it on the head. Our parents would always say about hang your hat where your hand can reach and live within your means. But we've, for years, think we can bat outside of our crease and become highly geared. And what's very important is not our income, but your expenditure. I always tell people, I'm never concerned about your income, but where your money goes. And so during lockdown, it was a good time for some people because it meant they weren't spending money on fast food. Because fast food is a fast way to have money to go out. They weren't spending money frivolously on their credit card, because your credit card leads to your debt card and your debt card, because it, as you said before, it ripples on with the issues of mental health issues as well too. And I think people need to get back to basic principles of living within your means, but also having core principles on buying things which are essential. Before lockdown started furiously, people were buying toilet roll like it was going out of fashion. I'm not sure why, but they were. So it's about adjusting yourself. It wasn't all doom and gloom during that time, because some people did start businesses, as Charmaine said, but also during the period of stay-at-home policy, lockdown, or the early days of COVID, the problem was that some businesses, which were already fragile or if I dare to say, weren't really businesses, as we saw, were taken out. Yeah. So there was a lack of planning, and like Charmaine, I've been evangelizing for the last amount of years about things like estate planning, your wills, your lasting power of attorney, and uncertainty. And I had many calls during lockdown with people in pain wanting to do these things. So the biggest thing I heard during lockdown was pain. People feeling pain all round. I think the sad thing is, though, that people who are most in pain are what I call the crushed middle, the crushed employees who've been furloughed on and off, and whereby the employers are furloughing them as just as a step, one step from making them redundant, especially those people, unfortunately, with less than 2 years service. Thank you, Mr. Cameron, because employers are using that route as a means to actually shed staff, because it's a cost-cutting exercise, unfortunately.
So, this, again, one of the reasons that prompted this show, and thanks, David, for that contribution, was about a week and a half ago, there was an article, I think it was in The Guardian, a lady who, she was on a 6-figure salary. She, late last year, she decided to take redundancy from wherever she was. She was very, very confident that she was going to find another job. She lived, and this is important, she lived in rented accommodation. Yeah, that's important. And COVID happened, and she started her normal thing of applying for jobs, and nothing came. Absolutely nothing came. So there's a certain amount of people who would have been caught unawares. And Marisha, I was wondering, in your practice, in the work that you've been doing, what was the first sign that we were cracking, that things were breaking with the people you were working with?
Well, now, see, it's interesting because I think when COVID happened, I'm going to start there for a second and roll it back for a bit. But when COVID happened, the pandemic happened, the shutdown happened. And of course, the government started to put in place a whole load of measures, which eased some of that initial panic of people going, okay, what's going to happen next? Oh, well, hang on, maybe I can get a mortgage holiday. Oh, I can get a credit card holiday. Oh, I can get a car payment holiday. Great. What I actually saw in some instances were people who were quite eager to take those holidays, who were saying, oh, okay, no, that can work. So maybe they were in a position where maybe they were furloughed, so they were still getting some kind of income. It might not have been the same amount, but fundamentally, could they afford to pay some or the majority of their bills? Probably. But then it became a case of, well, actually, sometimes some of this help could help me do other things, or it can just give me a little bit of a chance to jest back a little bit. And I heard a lot of people have that conversation and go, oh, well, I can get a mortgage holiday. I'm thinking I'm going to take it. The question I asked is, but do you really need to? And what that's about is because I think actually most people, and you made a point, Paul, that I'd agree with. I don't think it's fair for people to feel bad about being unprepared for this, because something like this has never happened before. Whilst in fairness, I would say to my clients, you always want to prepare for a recession. Probably once a decade, we're going to get a decent recession. If we look at history, that demonstrates that for at least the last 50 years, there's been a recession in each decade, a pretty deep one. But nothing has happened in this way where the world and the country has shut down. That's never happened before. So there's going to be a certain level of people going, well, hang on a minute, because this has never happened, the government's response to it has also never happened. There's never been this idea of bailing people out, companies out, yes. We know, for example, when the banks were deemed to be too big to go bust, that, the government stepped in. But for people, no. Now, I say all of that to say this. I think there was an element of people thinking that the pandemic, the lockdown was the problem. And as soon as the lockdown happened, I started to say to my clientele, there's two things that are going to happen here. So number one, if you're in a position to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to present themselves, start to think about doing that. I run an online investment program. I've been running it actually since the beginning of the year. So before we even dreamed that any of this was going to happen. And part of what I help people do is to identify their risk appetite and to help them understand how to start investment with where they are at. So if you've only got £50 a month, you can still get started if you know where to start. So I was saying to my clients, start to take advantage of that situation if you can. But then there was a second set of people. And the second set of people, I was saying to them, now is not the problem. So this is not the time to get clappy happy on Amazon and start buying everything online because you're thinking I've got a payment holiday and you know what, I can go out there and live my best life. Or, you know, as a lot of people did, house renovations and all sorts of things that maybe they felt previously they couldn't afford to do. And now they were taking that little bit of, you know, extra help that might be coming in as a way of doing it. Because I said, my thought process was, and I know this from working in financial industries as it is, the problem wasn't going to be during lockdown. The problem was going to be after it. So it was when things were going to start to reopen that we were going to start to see problems. And actually at the moment, we're only at the tip of that, because I actually anticipate that between now and the end of the year, the most job losses, we're going to start seeing repossessions soon. They've not kicked in yet, but it's going to start happening soon. And all the people who have been on the brink of being just over broke, and I'm not criticizing the job situation, I'm talking about how we live, are the people who have been in trouble, are in trouble, and are pending trouble. That's why we had big businesses go bust really early, because those were the people that were sitting on the edge. Those were the people that were sitting on the brink. And the same people who were doing that in their finances. For example, you earn £1,000. Each month, your outgoings are 999. If the boiler breaks, you're about to go into debt. If that's the position that you're in, that's when you become most tenuous. The other people that were a concern to me were what I call the middle incomers. So the people who probably earn between 50 and maybe 150,000 pounds, because notoriously those people are really bad at money management because they earn enough money each month to kind of do what they want to do. So an example of that is they don't have to save £1,000 to buy something. They go, oh, I'll just wait till the next payday and I can buy that £1,000 ticket item or what have you. I cannot imagine, I mean, I'm going to put it to you like this. I did a quiz on my show probably about 6 months ago, asking people questions like, what is the rate of tax that, you know, a standard employee pays, and questions like that, just to test financial knowledge. One thing I can tell you is most people couldn't answer a lot of those questions. And secondly, I don't even know how much universal credit is. I don't have a clue. I'm just being honest. Don't know. I can't imagine trying to live off whatever it is, because I will hear about certain salaries and I think about what my outgoings are. Granted, not all about spending. I also invest. So there's things that go into that part, but I couldn't imagine being in a position where all of that gets wiped out in one go and literally there is nothing that I could do. So the concern for me were the people who have a certain level of affordability. Those are the people who are being crunched the hardest. Those are the people with the most monthly payments rather than annual budgeting. Those are the people who are in trouble. Having said that, a lot of my clientele, because they're more investment focused, have actually been doing quite well out of this period and are planning to do more.
Sorry, you caught me typing at the precise time you were speaking. Look, one of the things that you mentioned is something that has been very, very conscious in my mind, and David talked about it a little bit as well. And this is about, it's got nothing to do with how much you earn. Yeah, I remember back in the day when we used to say, we would sit down, we would work out exactly what that salary increase worked out to. And, you know, we would go to Marks and Spencer sandwich or a Ratner's bracelets pay increase, because that's all it amounted to. But very importantly, what people have always done, and these are the middle income people that you're talking about, we adjust our lifestyles to our pay increases. So, you know, we'll be working for, I don't know, something like 40,000. You know, we'll go do a degree, we'll do a master's or something, and our increase jumps up to 70,000. And in 2 months, we've adjusted our lifestyle to take care of that. And so we're always on this loser. we're always on this treadmill where we're not going any quicker, we're not getting any faster. And Sherrine, I just want you to unmute yourself and have a word with us, because in your industry, in what you do, if we're plotting this as a graph, the realization that proverbial has hit the fan, the rainy day has turned up. Your graph just lags a little bit behind before you start seeing people coming through the door manifesting, and I'm guessing here, but manifesting the signs of, damn, we're in deep doo-doo. What's it been like from your side of point of view?
I think that is already happening. What I'm finding is that in my practice, anxiety levels have increased, stress levels has increased. And basically it's about dealing with the financial aspect. As Marisha spoke about, they have decided, some people, they're taking a payment holiday, and now we're in a position where they don't know what they're going to do next, because for some people furlough has ended. So for me, it's a situation where it's about trying to understand that it is important to keep your mental health in check during this process, because it shows up itself in different ways, such as lack of sleep or appetite changes, mood changes, and basically you don't function as well as you normally do. And generally what I am finding is that in terms of the family practice as well, families feel as though they're in trouble, and they don't know what to do or where to go. And so they come to ask for some sort of miracle work to deal with the financial issues. But really, we have to look at mental health as an individual issue. One that we need to take care of on a daily basis. And I will speak a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, I think it's weird because very much when COVID hit, as I said before, no one expected it. Yeah. And it's actually been my experience that some of the smaller companies, some of the individuals, they've probably weathered it a little bit better. And that's because in the case of the stuff that I do, we don't have the massive overheads of a large corporate building in the city that we're still paying for, and there's no one in it. We ain't got those large bills. But what did happen, and I know Charmaine has already talked about the whole concept of having more than one level of income. A lot of people that I know, we were just taken aback. One of the first things that I sort of thought, and I'm using myself as a template here, is that it will be over by summer. Yeah. So, we started with this great optimism, it will be over by summer. I had, well, what day is today? Today's the 30th. So on the 28th, I was supposed to be flying to Jamaica. Yeah. And, when COVID happened, I kind of thought, yeah, it'll be all right. That's 2 days ago, and I'm still here. So what, when you were talking, and your personal experiences, Charmaine, anybody, David, now, anybody can answer this, there's no turns here now. What were your perceptions, both individually and professionally, about how this was going to pan out? And has it gone as you thought? How have you helped people like myself who suddenly realized that I just moved my flight to March, and even that, I'm thinking maybe that might be too early. So what was your sort of path individually and professionally?
Well, my path, Paul, because I remember having to talk to my team the Thursday before we locked down, and that must be March the 20th. And I said to the guys, listen, we need to make sure, okay, we have all the records and stuff prepared for the next 6 months. And they laughed at me because they all thought, oh, it'd be over in 3 weeks, okay? And the sad thing was that Friday, I spoke to a colleague of mine we were meant to meet, and he said to me, oh, Dave, let's meet in 2 weeks' time. I said, I don't think so. The sad thing was he was gone by the next Saturday, okay? But
Sorry, when you say gone, what do you mean gone?
He left us. He passed away.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my first impact of COVID. Yeah, my close buddy went 7 days and a half after we spoke on the phone. Yeah, but I told my team it's going to be, let's plan for at least 6 months. Yeah, so I'm almost on course for our 6 months, and as it went along, okay, I saw it going further and further. So I didn't know how long it will be, but I took a long-term view, because if it's going to happen, double it plus 10% more, and you might be partially wrong by a little bit, is my prudent accountancy approach. Always think the worst of these things in that respects. So that's how it was. And you're right, we managed to transition at home as well, a small team. And that was a problem for me, as Sherrine will say, with mental health issues, because I didn't know how I was going to manage my team on that Friday. All I knew, on the Monday, we're going to have a team session. But by the Monday, I had a strategy. And the strategy was, for my team, every day we'll have 3 sessions: a breakfast session, a lunch session, and a wind down session, because I felt I had a duty to my clients to keep them going and help them along, okay? But moreover, my team were trapped at home themselves as well too, so I had a duty to them as well too. So I felt, as an employer, I had multiple roles. There was my personal role, which I parked to one side, as you do as a black man or an employer. But my duty to my team, to help them along as well too. And also the first 2 weeks of frantic phone calls from businesses that trying to help them plan to apply for what was ever were there as well too. So I took a long-term view. I still think, okay, we might be back in the office until, at the earliest, I think, January next year. I'm thinking it may be sooner, but I'm still thinking it's next January. So that was my thought on the whole matter.
I have a question, which again anybody can answer, because one of the effects of COVID has been that, and Sherrine, this may be within your forte more. One of the effects has been that a lot of people have been working from home. So if we move around the people who already work from home in some way, they had their own businesses, whatever. But what we have a lot of office people who work from home, and the people I know who work from home, they sort of celebrated. When COVID came in, it was great, wonderful. I don't have to commute. I can do that. But as it's worn on, and this is where I think the mental health thing has chipped in, and probably why people are binge buying on Amazon. Yeah, it's become very intensive. It's become very harsh working from home for these long periods. I know that, on a weekend, I just want to get out of the house. I don't even know where I'm going, but it's really hard, and it has stresses and strains on your mental health. And Amazon is like, it's like a drug. Let me buy, something on Amazon, because hey, I'll get the guy to come deliver and I'll get to see you. You're all laughing, but it's true. We've been locked down for such a long time now that the beauty of working from home in my shorts has worn out. Yeah.
I would chime in and say something there. Now, it's really interesting because of the nature of how I've worked over a number of years. I've worked from home, or I call it on the road, where I'm alone fundamentally, and say traveling all over the country. At times I've done that for periods of years. And so actually what happened when lockdown kicked in was, the first thing I did was I communicated with my team, and I started to say things to them like, right, make sure you get out of the house for a walk each day, build exercise into your routine if you can. Actually I even said to them, let's change working practices. So I'm not concerned about you being at your desk, as it were, 9 to 5. I don't care, frankly, how you do your hours, and let's become much more results and task oriented than time focused. So actually, if you feel like you need to get away at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a couple of hours, go and do it. But why? Because one of the things I think on a personal level I'm quite good at is understanding some of those challenges and what that looks like. So having worked at home, I did realize, I remember the very first time I worked from home for a solid year, starting a recruitment business. This was probably about 18 years ago, 18, 20 years ago. I'm showing my age, but anyway. After a year, I was depressed. And I didn't realize that I was depressed because I was so ingrained in what I was doing. It's like I pulled my head up and suddenly went, why do I feel like this? And realized the impact of kind of isolating myself. Now, that for me started off at a level of education. I'm sure this is probably something that Sherrine's very familiar with. But, I do think that this is where people, because we're so busy, frankly, get into the habit of living life rather than the habit of connecting with ourselves. And so there does come a point when you spend too much time with yourself and you spend too much time with people close to you that you're not used to doing, that's going to add a level of pressure. And I think it even highlights then what issues we have. So I'll give an example. I always say to people, we all have a financial personality. One of the things I understand about my financial personality is that I'm an impulse buyer. I get it off my mom. She impulse bought a house. That was a very good indication to me that I could end up going down the wrong road if I wasn't careful. So because I know I'm an impulse buyer, there's certain practices that I just don't engage in. I don't go window shopping. It doesn't exist in my world, and window shopping will result in shopping. That's it, because I'm going to see something, I'm going to buy it. And I'm not one of these people that is like, oh, I've got £50 and I'm going to spend £50 today. I'm the sort of person of, do I have enough money in my bank account for that card payment? Take my money. I know that about my personality, and I got to understand that a long time ago. So I restrict my activities based on that. I just don't go window shopping. I don't open Amazon and go, let's just have a little look. Because £200 later, there will be an Amazon truck outside my house. It's really funny. There's a delivery guy outside my house right now that I can see. And my first thought was, did I order something that I've forgotten I've ordered? And then I thought, no, I definitely did not. And then he went to my neighbours, and I thought, okay, phew, I didn't do that. But, understanding who we are is a big part of this journey. And even when it comes to tackling your finances, it's always important to do what is comfortable for someone. And what I mean by that is, if like me, you're an impulse shopper, you're never going to remove that aspect of your personality. What you can start to do is manage it. And I think there's a difference. And I think sometimes it's like going on a diet, isn't it? We go from eating, McDonald's and cake on Monday to that's it, Tuesday and cold turkey. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work, because the brain doesn't work that way. The body doesn't work that way. So I feel like this was actually a really good time for people to connect with themselves and understand their personalities. And that leads to the behaviors that then get us into trouble, frankly.
But Sherrine, were people able to do that? Because I hear what Marisha is saying, and I endorse that 100%.
The reality is relationships have broken up. There are couples who felt they didn't know each other, quite frankly. And COVID has taught them that spending so much time with their partner, they realize, who is this person that I'm living with? And then all of a sudden, it's a situation
I don't know why David's laughing so hard.
They realize, what have I been doing? Because COVID has actually exposed a real issue, whereas we may live in a partnership and we're fine with each other because we're getting on with our daily lives. And so it doesn't become an issue until you actually stuck with each other. And then you realize, what am I doing? So that has happened quite a lot for a start. I think I accept what Marisha is saying, but in terms of getting individuals to go for a walk, etc., I would just say that the 5 ways to well-being, which is quite good for managers as well as people being at home, is that they need to connect with each other. And that doesn't mean texting. It means picking up the phone, call someone, check if your family is okay, but have a conversation. Keep learning. That is a good way to help your mental health. So if you're in lockdown, or if we went into another form of lockdown, do something that helps you to keep learning. Exercise. That could be a simple walk. do as much as little as you can, but that helps to give you some sort of happiness hormone that will help you to move forward. Give your time to someone, even if it's just doing your next door neighbor's shopping. Do something that means you are giving to someone else. And also take care of or take notice of things. I would suggest mindfulness or meditation or yoga, something that means that you need to take note. Go outside, hug a tree, smell a flower, do something. Yes, I see how shocked you are, but amazingly, that is good for the soul. Yeah. Yes, tree. Yeah. And most importantly, gratitude. Be grateful for the fact that you're still alive. Some of us still have a job. Some of us haven't, but show gratitude. That is a good way to help our mental health as well.
Go on.
And in terms of me, when the lockdown happened, it affected me because I'm a very people person. The events that we did in the community were very community focused, and I was very aware of how people in the community used our events, because I often said before the lockdown, a lot of people would be surrounded by a lot of people, but they're in fact quite lonely. So we used our community event to bring people together and use our passion for Black history and Black studies to bring people together. So when lockdown happened, it was just like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to do our public events no more. But I still felt obligated to do events to bring people together. So we went online. I'm very close to my father. So when they were saying, oh, you can't go and visit your family, that was hard for me. And there was one day I was like, you know what, I can't do this no more. I don't care. Right, children in the car, let's go do a drive-by. And I literally took the children in the car. I went to go. My father was at the front door and we was in the car, because I'm a type of person that I can't just do phone calls all the time. I want to actually go and physically go and see my friends and family. And it was affecting the children, because the children see their granddad every week, like 3 times a week. And they're like, oh, I miss my granddad. I miss granddad. I miss my friends. And I was like, how is this whole lockdown affecting them? Even though I work with my husband, so we see each other all the time. So we didn't really have those issues, even though I get on his last nerves at the best of times. We still had to manage that. But I had to look at how is this impacting on the children, because we used to being in the house all the time because we was always out of the house. So I had to take them for a walk, go to the park, to do activities with them in the house so that they felt that they have time to relax and chill. Even getting them to do online, they were doing online yoga. We was putting on YouTube videos and dancing around our house and singing songs and doing things. So I had to be thinking about all the other people in my house and also outside of my house. So I support I've got family members with mobility issues that were in their house, weren't getting the support. So there was times when I had to go and physically get shopping and bring it to them because they only had like certain items in their house. So I'm looking at it from all aspects, because there was people going through and supporting another family member with like very serious health issues. So how is that impacting on them not being in their house? Because if you've got a chronic illness, you can't just go for a walk because you're thinking about where is the nearest toilet. But if everything's locked down, where are you going? You're stuck in your house. So all of these things were going through my mind. And this lockdown has been interesting because it's brought family members together as well as separating them. But sometimes it's a good thing. There's no point in I don't believe in sitting down in a relationship being unhappy for years and years and years. Sometimes you might have to part, but some people have got even more closer together. And I know there's been babies being born. So look at the positives and the negatives as well. So, and even what brother was saying in terms about his workplace and working with people and preparing the workers, at least he was doing that. A lot of companies weren't thinking in that way and preparing their workers, or even checking on how they are. So we've got to be thinking about, and then I know your workers will be appreciative of that because you're actually thinking about them and not just thinking about the work per se. So yeah, so it affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and I don't think we've actually truly uncovered how it's affected people. This is going to come, like what you said, in January, February, because we're not seeing it now. Because Miss Sister said about rent, is it eviction ban is going to be lifted on the 24th of September? That's going to affect a lot of people.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, that, you know, with the various initiatives coming to an end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I put myself in a situation where you know, I took, I don't know, the mortgage holiday or whatever it is I took. Or here's a better example. So the furlough scheme is coming to an end.
Yes.
And the furlough scheme has allowed companies to keep staff, those of them who were nice enough to keep staff on hand, yeah, paying them just 20%. And please note, and I don't want any sneering from people I know who are in the audience, up to a salary of $2,500. Yep. So let's be crystal clear. This did not work for the guys Marisha was talking about earlier who were on 70,000. Yeah. So the guys who were on 70,000, furloughing did not work for them. Yeah. Let's be crystal clear about that, because there's a ceiling of 2,500. Yeah. Which would have meant, I don't know, somebody do the math quickly, they were probably taking home just over $3,000. Yep. So all of the guys and ladies who were on 65 upwards, furloughing didn't work. That was a pay cut for them. You're right. The people who were on less money, who suddenly didn't have to pay transportation costs. I know a lady who, for example, she no longer had to pay for her childcare. Yeah. The people was at home driving her crazy. Yeah. Yes. But that mortgage payment of childcare was now gone.
Yeah.
But here we are today. Yeah. Furloughing is coming to an end. Right now, if you took a payment holiday on a debt, they are writing you now to say to you, you've got your holiday. How are we going to adjust your payments to fix that? Because they're not extending it, by the way. Yeah. What do we say to those people today? Yeah. You know, we can tell them they should have prepared for a rainy day, but that's gone. That horse has galloped. What do we say to them? David, what's there for them now?
That's the big one. On one hand, the fortunate ones can start to dip into their savings. And this is where we see the strength of community and families. And we might have recourse to rally around and get support from families. But as a last resort, okay, these are the ones who are most vulnerable, because they have to fall back on our friend, the unfriendly state, because there's nothing in the offering available for those people that I can see, unfortunately. You know, they can try and negotiate with third parties and prey on their goodwill nature, but in so doing, whilst they may get a result in the short term, it does have a long-term impact, because by asking for holidays on your mortgage and your credit card, whilst it helps you through, okay, it does leave an imprint on your credit score. And later on, okay, you'll pay the price for that for at least some 6 years, possibly longer, some people. So it's a real difficult challenge they're facing now in that respect, unless they can get access to cheap finance or a favourable lender. And the only lenders whereby they may be able to get access from is if they've been in something like a credit union who is a benevolent supporter of their means. Otherwise, sadly, they are proverbially trapped.
Marisha, come on, give me some good news. I need some good news, man, because the reality of the matter is, you know, a friend of mine, and I know she won't mind me using her story, I won't identify her, but she was explaining to me that after a number of years of childcare, looking after her children, she finally got back out to work. Yeah, she got back out to work, got herself a very decent job, head down into the job, working hard. About 18 months in, along comes COVID. Yeah. Somebody in the chat mentioned the fact that some of the companies are using COVID to renegotiate contracts. I know British Airways, you know, is a case in point. They've renegotiated contracts and negotiated people, but also there are people who are now saying, look, we can't go on, we're folding, or we're making redundancies. You know, another friend of mine, he works for a massive worldwide consultancy. They've just announced 20,000 redundancies worldwide. You know, there'll be a couple thousand here in the UK. So a lot of these people, they're professional people. They're highly qualified. They have lifestyles that match those salaries. Tell me something aside from universal credit, please.
Okay. Okay, so I think it depends, which is not always the most useful answer, but there's a lot of dependencies. So for example, there are still some outstanding schemes that are running at the moment that may be of assistance. So for example, people who are self-employed or have got businesses, I believe there's been a second run of the self-employed version of the furlough scheme, where you get kind of 3 months income based on profits and so on. And it's because there's a number of people actually, when they looked at the stats, who actually didn't necessarily claim it the first time round. So those people in particular are being encouraged to do so. And it's it will be taxed, but the real element is that it's a grant effectively. It's not something you pay back. You'll be taxed on it as part of your income later on, but you know, in the short term, it might help out. I think whenever you can see that there are problems coming, it really is about trying to get ahead of the situation. So an example, and I mean, this is something that I did personally, and you know, being honest, I kind of just took advantage of the situation. You know, there are a lot of companies that are used to the conversation of, I can't afford. So, you know, I just made a point of contacting certain things you can't change at this point. You know, I can't change my mortgage payment as an example, not at this stage. I'm in a contract, you know, when that ends, that's when I can do something about it. But that's not the case when it comes to things like my car insurance, my home insurance, etc. So I just made phone calls to people going, okay, so where's my COVID discount? Like, how do I pay you less? And I actually saved a lot of money by doing that, just literally phoning up people and saying, actually, I you. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation about I can't afford. That could just be I want a better deal. I got 3 months for internet and all sorts of things going on that they just gave me because I asked. So I do say to people, it's important for you to ask, do a bills check, do a direct debit check, look at what you are paying out, decide if you really need to be paying out, and if you do need to be paying it, speak to those people. If you feel like you're going to run into trouble, because 9 times out of 10, we get some kind of warning. End of this month, end of next month, I think end of October, furlough officially ends, I believe. So if you're already sitting there thinking, this could be a problem, start getting ahead of the problem. And this is where speaking to the people who you are paying out to or who you owe money to, it's a good idea to start to try and get ahead of that, because the reality of the matter is that most companies will accept something if it's above nothing. You know, the problem is when we bury our heads in the sand, and then that's when you end up with a bailiff knocking on your door. 9 times out of 10, if you can get ahead of it, it's not comfortable. It's not always a nice conversation, but what it does do is it starts to put you in a different stead. And the other thing I would say, and again, a message I was sending at the beginning of the pandemic is, we talk about survival of the fittest. I feel like this is survival of the creative. There is money out there. One thing that I love, particularly from younger generations, is, as Charmaine made the point about multiple income streams, they've got very good at that. They're actually in a position where they're not used to having consistent incomes. And so on that basis, they think about earning money in as many different ways as they can. This is the time to have a clear out if you've got extra stuff in your house that you do not need. This is the time to think, what skills do I have that I can make use of? If I can bake a cake and decorate it, you know, and do a convincing job of, I don't know, Thomas the Tank Engine on that cake, is now the time for me to be making that cake, putting it on social media and getting people to buy stuff from me. I mean, I'll give you an example of a young musician that I know, because we all know that people in the arts have been totally hit in all of this, income wiped out in most instances. And I know one young musician that actually, here's what I didn't know. I didn't know that he could do art. He started drawing portraits of people as a way of gaining additional income. And actually, he's hugely talented. He started changing his merchandise. So he would sell T-shirts with his stage name on it. He changed that to face masks. I think he sold out 3 times. Every time he puts out a batch of them, they sell out in no time. You know, this is where it is about, rather than, and I'm saying this not in a flippant way because I know it's not easy. When you are worried, it is very easy to focus your energy on worry and to wake up with that anxiety and that stress and think, I don't know what to do. And that's always the most difficult place to be in, because what you block yourself from is the ideas, the options. There is always going to be something. You know, when I think about the tough times that I've had that might not have been relevant to the pandemic and now, but let me tell you, this is when pride went out the window. I have done whatever job I've needed to do to make an income. To give an example, you might not be able to get the big paying job that you're qualified for right now, but Tesco are recruiting how many thousands of people at the moment because their business has expanded in the last few months. You know, these are the times when we call for that moment of survival and not always being in a space of pride. There's times when I've juggled the supermarket job, the cleaning job, the bar job. Okay, we might not get the bar job at the moment, but the point being is that there's always some kind of option. And if we trim our income down to the very bare bones of what it can be, you know, we give up on the coffees and the lunches and we say, okay, this is about the mortgage payment and, you know, making sure the kids eat. You tend to find you can pull that down by a good chunk. And then what you start to do is you really focus on covering your basics in the short term and doing what's needed for that. You know, I'm being for real. If I lost my income tomorrow and the only thing I could do was taxi driving, watch me put that face mask on my face and use the car that I have parked on my driveway to say who wants to go where, and I will take your 10 or your 15 pounds, thank you very much. Like, when it comes down to survival, there are times when we have to step away from pride. We have to step away from thinking I can do and start thinking, what can I do? And when you ask yourself that question, you'll be surprised how many answers come. And for some people, it's changing their whole viewpoint on their careers, particularly for people who were stuck in jobs that they hated and have now had to get creative and use their talent instead. Realizing that it's possible has made that happen. My youngest sister is a really good example of that, because the other thing I will say is the conversation has changed. So I've been speaking about money for years, as I'm sure my colleagues have. And there was a time that when you used to talk about money, nobody wanted to have the conversation with you. They were not interested. They did not want to talk. You know, when I used to say to people, learn how to invest, they're like, yeah, okay, not interested. In the last 6 months, all of a sudden, everybody's knocking my door. So, Marisha, you know that thing you said about investing again? When's your next course? Because I think I might need to join. The conversation has changed. And so all of a sudden, the things that people weren't buying into before, they're buying into now. My sister's into tech and has always been excellent when it comes to getting businesses out there using technology. Her business has boomed in the last 6 months because now everybody wants to know how they can market online because they can no longer, you know, hold the banner up out in the street. So the point being is, what is happening at the moment is a shift. And in fact, this is something that I'm not happy with the government about, to give a very good example. They're saying to people at the moment, we want you back out in the office, we want you back at work, because to me, they see one linear route to how money is made. We get people out there, which means they're paying money for transport and for this. Oh, I think we've lost Paul. I'm sure he'll be back. They see, you know, transport costs, the lunchtime sandwich menu, all of these things as ways that are stimulating the economy. But actually, I feel like the government need to catch up and recognise that there are lots of different ways to skin a cat and lots of different ways to make a buck. And there's lots of resources out there that may not be the obvious status quo ways of making money that we have gotten used to, but it doesn't mean that they are not there. People who have relied on, say, technology for their income have probably not had as many problems as people who have been relying on the high street for theirs. So this is where I think it is about being creative and looking at what different people are doing to survive, and see if you can replicate that for yourself. It's just now time to do things differently, but it doesn't mean that there isn't money there and ways to stimulate the economy. I'll turn over to a colleague.
And it's so true, sis. It's so true, because so for those that don't know, I run Black History Studies with my husband, and I knew about Zoom and webinars and before, but I like the collective community spirit and coming out and doing community events. So when lockdown happened, I was like, what are we gonna do? Oh yeah, I've got a Zoom account. Oh, I can do Zoom webinars. I was like, oh, I hate doing Zoom webinars, but I said, let me just do them. And they were successful. We had people saying, oh, thank God you're doing the webinars now, because I'm in Birmingham and I always see events in London and I can't get to go. So we have people tuning in from all over the world, from Qatar, Canada. We've got people from Italy. We did webinars regularly. Now we've got courses online. Now we've got people coming in from all over the world, accessing our courses. And even though we was on the lockdown, unfortunately, it resulted in the death of George Floyd for people to decide that they want to learn about their history. So there was one stage when we were selling over like 100 books a week, and it was ridiculous, where we're now on first name terms with the people in the post office, because they're like, oh my gosh, you're doing so well. When everybody is in the queue outside, they're like, nope, just let this person go through and walk through with the big bag, because it led to a lot of demand, because people started to look at, oh my gosh, I need to recognize learning my history. And people came, because we was online anyway, we're always on social media, so people found us. And that was a blessing in disguise, because we were thinking, how are we going to survive? How are we going to be able to deliver the work that we do? We had courses with students, about 30 students each class, thinking, how are we going to continue to teach them? So we just went online, and that seemed to have worked. And the people that have come on our courses seem to love it. We're still engaging with the community as well and helping people. So like what you said, sis, we had to be flexible. Even though I had to go away from my personal view of webinars, which I hate. I'm like, listen, no, Charmaine, it's not just about you. It's about continuing the work that you're doing and just doing it online. But hopefully when things get back to normal, or whatever normal is, we can actually resume back our public events, and we can do both public and both online, so we can reach the maximum amount of people. And it's very interesting in looking at what's happening at this moment in time, because everybody's starting to be very creative. I've seen lots of businesses started over this period of time, and I'm loving this, because I want to see more people doing businesses. Parents thinking, I don't have to go back to work. I can actually bring my children to school and come back and still generate an income and spend with my children. A lot of people were saying to me, it's so good that I'm actually spending time with my children, even though they were driving me crazy. I love the fact that I'm with my children every day. And you're seeing a lot of people making changes in their life, even resting. Paul said it earlier, he was stressed out. And even me, running up and down, doing all these events, I had to literally sit down in my house. And I'm not a person that likes to stay in my house. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Am I going to be in the house getting on my husband's nerves? Or what am I going to use? How am I going to use this time? And I was using this time to learn, put things in place, sort out things in my house. And that was a blessing for me. And I actually achieved one of my goals that I was delaying, that was being delayed each year. I actually sat down and focused and achieved one of my goals. So these are the things that you can, it's all about mindset, how you look at the situation. And I was thinking doom and gloom, because there was a stage when I was looking at the money in my account, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I applied to Tesco, I applied to Lidl, I applied to Aldi and all those jobs, because I'm thinking, what, another stream of income to tie me over. But then when I focused, I didn't have to go down that route, because it was being looked after in elsewhere. So sometimes you've got to think about the situation, and sister will say it's all about how you approach and how do you approach the challenge at hand, and what can you do. And you do get creative when you sit down and relax and think and actually eat home cooked food as well, because that was a good thing. Now people have to discover that, oh, maybe I can't cook, I need to learn how to cook, yeah, and even save some money. So a lot of people are saving money, and they're saying they're not going back to how it was before. because now they're seeing the benefits of being in their house, cooking their food, spending time with their family, speaking to their family on the phone, bringing people together as well, and actually sorting out their finances. So I had a lot of people talking about wills and trusts and especially wills and trusts and estate planning, and we've definitely got to speak, because this is the time where people are looking at mortality. They had friends around them that passed away. One of our students, the rapper Ty, he was one of our beloved students. He passed away, and that affected my husband and myself and the students, even the children who loved him really. So we started looking at, oh my gosh, we got people that are, because COVID was over there, but then when it comes to here, you're like, oh my gosh, wow. And then you've got to be thinking about how do you deal with that grief, yeah, and still go on. So it does affect your mental health. And then when you're away from your family, and then you realize that your family some families don't really give a damn about you. And then that gets revealed in this moment in time. So sometimes your own family don't look after you. You've got to find your friends and doing on your friends and close family as well. And your neighbors. Because I started talking to neighbors I never even talked to before. Because who else are you going to speak to as you're walking up and down the stairs, putting rubbish in the bin? But these are the things that you're trying to do. Even though we had to be separated, there's other ways we can come together, and it's very important.
Sherrine, I want to ask a quick question with regards to.
Oh, you're back.
Yes, I'm back. I'm very much back. Thank you guys for keeping it going as if I didn't exist. Good thing it's my show, or you guys would just make me redundant. Hey, thank you. The question I wanted to ask was about some of the stuff Marisha was saying about, handling stuff, and making that decision. And Marisha, look, you're in good company. I had that decision as well. Not in this case, I've been fine, but in the past, I've been unemployed. I've gone for jobs as a delivery driver, only to have the guy look in my face and say, "You're not going to stay, are you?" Yeah, this is just a stopgap for you. So I hear you. But Sherrine, I wanted to talk a little bit about the mindset. Yeah, about the mindset, because when I hear Marisha talking and I hear Charmaine, David, and myself, we have a very specific mindset already. Yeah, as my mother said, as long as you're not a thief, you go make your money. Yeah. What about that person who they just can't push themselves there? They're in a rut, and typically when you're in a rut, it's hard to get out. Whether we found a way out earlier on, I don't know, but that's irrelevant. But what about the people? How do they even know? Some people don't even know that they're in a rut. They don't even know that they're depressed. When I first realized I was stressed, it was weeks in, and I have to say, the moment I acknowledged that I was stressed, I was cool again. How do people even know? Especially some of us hardback men who pretend nothing can shake we. How do we even start to know that, you know what, you're not really firing on the all cylinders, Paul? How do we know?
I think there are several ways you can know. Usually it's a situation where a number of things happen to you, either all together or one at a time. One of the main things is your sleeping pattern. That usually changes. So you go from someone who would normally sleep maybe 6-7 hours, and now you're having difficulty sleeping. Appetite changes is one of them as well. Once again, it's a situation where if you're used to having a healthy appetite and all of a sudden you have none, or vice versa. And one thing I do know about COVID is that a lot of people gained weight during that period because they weren't having enough exercise. So the appetite changes is another way to find out. Also mood changes. If it's a situation where you're normally a happy-go-lucky person and all of a sudden you're feeling stressed about everything, or your mood change in terms of you don't really want to speak to anyone, then that is another valuable indication. Another thing is there is normally a drop in the way you function. So if you could say, if you're working and you could deal with 4 clients a day and all of a sudden you just don't want to get out of bed, or in terms of looking for a job, that becomes an issue for you where you are really struggling, then that is an indication that something is wrong as well. Also, you have an increase in sensitivity. So someone may say something to you that you wouldn't take personally normally, but all of a sudden, you know, it's a big issue for you. That affects you. Apathy. I would say if you're feeling uninterested in anything, then that is an indication that something is wrong. Because if you're losing your interest in things that meant something to you, I think feeling disconnected, a lot of us felt that during COVID, but I think sometimes when you're feeling disconnected to the point where you really do not want to make the effort to connect with anyone, then that is also an indication. Also, nervousness. If you're feeling nervous or anxious about things that you wouldn't normally feel anxious about, I think nervousness and anxiety has increased during COVID significantly because individuals are worried about what is happening in the future. They're worried about, okay, financial is one element of it, but they're worried about, will they catch COVID? Will they not? I think one of the things I would advise in terms of getting information about COVID as it moves on is that do not watch the news every day. I would advise you maybe twice a week, 3 times a week maximum, because what that does is it feeds your anxiety. And all of a sudden you feel that there's no hope, that something is going to happen to you. So focus more on your 5 ways to good mental health. Focus more on, you know, doing things that you enjoy. Pick up a hobby, connect with people, mindfulness. I can't sing that enough because I feel meditation is so important to help us to keep in the present moment and not always have to think about the future consistently. You have to have a point where you need to be in the moment.
I wonder if anybody would like to talk a little bit about what I call, and you know, one of my friends, Donna Murray Turner, I know she's in the chat. We were talking the other night on a thing, Horlicks and Hardo bread that she does, which is quite an interesting name. And we were talking about repurposing yourself. Yeah, just recognizing that whatever it is that you used to do, right now you can't do it. Yeah, and you sort of have to make an acceptance of that. So one of my clients on my website, Just Tickets, she used to do regular face-to-face events. Yep. She was my most regular customer and she did those events with great success. And I had 19 days on my website of 0 income. And in the 3 years of running the site, that had never happened. And I started to panic myself because, you know, yes, it's one of my 3 sources of income, Charmaine, so we can nod to that. But, you know, daddy still needs a new car every 3 weeks, so we have to handle that. So I started ringing people up and saying to people, look, you know, what can we do? You know, and we started to move events online, and people who couldn't use Zoom, there was a flurry of how to use Zoom courses by people who, you know, we've been using Zoom for a little bit longer. So we started to repurpose our skills. You know, I'm a bit of a techie, so I started to repurpose my skills. And I'm just thinking now that what we need to be doing is, as people, rather than sitting down, we've had 6 months to cry. Let's be straight. And nobody could knock you if you spent 4 months crying. But the furlough is about to end. Yeah. So we now need to start to repurpose ourselves and start saying to ourselves, what else can we do? And, you know, there is absolutely no shame in making that decision to go down and take one of those big jobs that Tesco is now offering. Yeah. We're not saying that it needs to be your career, but it needs, if it's going to be more than universal credit, if it's going to get you out of the house, it's going to keep you mobile, make you have new environments, and it's something worth doing more than just for the money. It is important for us to recognize that Amazon has been one of the great winners of COVID. In fact, all these delivery companies have been great winners. So there are still opportunities. They may not be at the pay level, but you have to also think about your mental well-being. And your mental well-being is really quite different. I have thought about taking a Tesco's job, not necessarily because I need the money, but because it would bloody well get me out of the house. Yeah? Because in the other job that I do, I log on 8 o'clock in the mornings, and I find myself sometimes I don't get up for lunch. Not that my waistline is showing this. I don't get up for lunch till 2, 3 o'clock. And then I don't go anywhere. So lunch is at my desk. And I'm doing Teams meetings, sometimes back to back. Nobody has any respect. So your well-being, and that's what I want to talk a little bit more about from you guys in terms of the clients that you're dealing with, about their well-being. And we know Sherrine is talking about some mindfulness and some. So I think, Sherrine, you have a mindfulness tape. Yeah. But I think it's important for us that even though you guys probably deal with the very factual side of the work you do, talk to us a bit about how you talk to people about their attitude, because a lot of the survival of this is about attitude. The decision to do investments is about attitude. It's not so much about, do you have £1 million or 50? This is about attitude. How do we change the mindsets of the people listening? Because as you rightly say, one day COVID is going to be finished. What comes next? We now know that this sort of thing can happen. What can we do in terms of mindset shift to prepare us for what comes next?
I think one of the things is that whenever there is a downturn, my mind always tells me that as long as you've been knocked down, okay, you're not knocked out. You're not like Dylan White. You're not yet. So once you're down there, okay, let's start being creative, because the future favors the creative. Because it's in these times that you start planting the seeds of growth, I think, and also linked to the mental health issue as well too. Throughout the whole period, okay, the big thing about mental health for me has been about for my staff, yeah, because they're important. Because I've seen too many employers, okay, tell people, here you are, here's a laptop, go away and we'll contact you. And that's crazy. And I think it's imperative that you communicate with your staff, also change their way they're working, and even be bold and say, guess what, guys, have one day off a week or have an afternoon off, okay? It won't cost you the end of the world. And we're a small concern who are equally struggling as well too. But we've got to recognize, okay, at this time, it's not about the me, it's about the we, and we have to be we winning together, the winning edge, and that's important. So we've got to start creating the mindset about what can we do, yeah, and how can we actually bounce back, and how can we stimulate our creative juices, and do some self-analysis of ourselves. What is it that I like doing, that I can do to actually earn some money for myself? It's like a good friend of mine. I know for 38 years, he was a mechanic. And all I thought he knew about cars. Then about 4 weeks ago, we were around a house talking, and his wife said, since lockdown, he's been making potato pudding and Toto. Well, I said to him, well, forget about the cars, the Toto's in. We can find you a new supplier. Yeah, I'll be your key taster, and it can work. So there you have someone who for years, okay, had been known as only someone who'd known about grease and wheels. But deep down, he had another talent. So we've got to ask ourselves, and also believe in ourselves, it won't be right first time, but shake off the fear of it's not perfect, because the perfect product is still on the cutting table. Once we're prepared to step forward or put ourselves above the parapet and try, it'll work. It's like Marisha said, okay, about the investment. You don't need £10,000 to invest. In fact, that's the worst thing you need. You can start with £50 or £25. There's always a way. So from where you are, let's start from where you are with that mindset and let's use where you are to try and go forward.
I would just add to that, listen to yourself. A lot of us don't realise the head chatter that we have. And so you want to try and listen to what creeps into your mind, because that's the way that you start to be able to manage it. So a very good example, Sherrine made the point earlier about gratitude. And one of the things that I learned over the years to change was my attitude when it came to money and gratitude. So as an example, you've got £100 left in your bank account, you've got a bill, it's £99. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, once I've paid this bill, I'm only going to have £1 left, I'm broke. I started to learn to think, thank goodness I've got the money that I need to pay this bill. I'm so grateful for that. And I say that because what it starts to do is it shifts your attitude to what you have versus what you need. You know, one thing I've come to understand is that, and people sometimes forget, is money's just a resource. That's all it is. If you are hungry in that moment, you might think you need money, and yes, money might help, but if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and like me, you live in the middle of the village, if I'm hungry, money's not going to help me at that point, because what I need is food, and I can't get food at 1 o'clock in the morning in a village, and unless I go raid somebody's field, and that's a bit too risky. So the point I'm making is that sometimes we think that money is the answer to everything, and sometimes it's actually not at all. What we should be focusing on is truly what we need. So I often say to people, you can only challenge your beliefs when you know what they are. And so if you keep saying things like, I'm broke, you'll continue to be broke. If you say, but I'm financially challenged, guess what? Well, we can all overcome a challenge. You know, head chatter is really important. And one of the mantras that I have to this very day, if there's ever a point where I worry or I start to feel like I'm worrying about money, I'll stop myself and I go, wait a minute, I always have what I need. And I don't know why that works for me, but it works for me. And whatever it is that I might need is what will come. I'll give you a really good example. I was moving house. My solicitors undercharged me. What that meant was on the day of completion, I got a whopping £750 bill that wasn't accounted for. Anyway, of course you budget for these things. It had an impact. And I remember, and I had no flooring in my house. The problem I had was the house got gutted by a flood whilst we were in the process of buying it. And so I turned up and there was no floor. Anyway, and I remember going to the floor shop and just knowing that somewhere along the line, I bought this flooring and somehow I was going to get it home. Somehow I was going to get it home. And at the time I had a convertible. And in my mind, I was like, listen, even if it means that this flooring has got to be sticking up out, if I've got to drop the hood and there's just going to be, you know, bits of wood sticking out everywhere, I don't care. I'm finding a way to get it home. Anyway, the long story short is, and I just remember thinking, don't worry about it. I always have what I need. I walked into that shop, and not only did I get the flooring that I needed, there was a guy standing right there with a van who said, I will bring it to your house. Bearing in mind, it was a 20-mile journey. I'll bring it to your house. And he said, just give me petrol. And in fact, he was responsible for renovating half of my house after that. The point I'm making is sometimes you just don't ever know where a blessing is going to come from. And we block our blessings by telling ourselves that the only way we can get to point A is by going through point B, when sometimes if you take a detour, go up the road and go around the corner, you'll get there faster. So I just say to people, listen to what's in your head and challenge yourself and try and turn that attitude of fear to one of gratitude, because guess what? There are many people that were lost during this period that didn't live to see another day. And those of us who are here right now who are in that position, as long as we are breathing and we have breath, that means that we have another day to fight on and to make a difference. And I think sometimes when we're in our deepest moments, we forget that and get all woe is me. Actually, we're here, we can do something.
We're talking now about what we're doing next. And I want to bring some of the people who have joined us on the Zoom in who have questions or comments. But I think what I'd like to say before we dive into that is about, if you have managed to repurpose yourself, if you've rediscovered some skill, if you've done something different which has helped you to adapt and move within this time, don't be looking forward to go back to normal. Yeah, don't be on this train about I want to go back to normal. Let's go back to something different and something better. So if you've managed to manipulate the situation as it is to your benefit, to keep your head up, two things I'm going to ask you to do. Continue doing it even when things return to the so-called normal. That's number one. All the bad habits that you've dropped and all of the good ones that you've adopted, keep it so. Yeah? Because that means that you'll have a bit ahead of the curve. And the other thing I'd like you to think about doing is something that I talk to people quite a lot when I talk about coaching people, is about asking for help. Yeah? One of the things that I know certainly I used to suffer with about quite a lot is not asking for help. And I now understand it's a mental shift and sometimes we have to do that, but we have to learn to ask for help. There's always someone out there who can help us. Yeah. And very often they just want to know that you need help, and you'd be surprised the sort of resources you have, maybe in your own social circle or even just one layer removed. Yeah. It is very, very important that you learn to ask for help. And I said two things, but I was lying. The third thing I'd like to say is what I posted when I posted that article about the lady in The Guardian. And that is about looking after each other. Yeah. In the office that I worked, they've adopted a little scheme where when you see someone on a Teams message and you say, "How are you?" ask them twice. Yeah. Give people the opportunity to say, "Well, actually, I'm struggling with X or I'm struggling with Y." We've got to the point where just saying hello has become a drill. And very often we're not even waiting for a reply. And we say, "How are you?" It's like this very English thing, by the way, where you guys say, "See you later." And I've always been confused by that. I ain't seeing you later. I have no plan to. But it's a phrase. It's just a phrase. And I think stuff like "How are you?" has become a phrase. Yeah. Now, I do know that sometimes when you ask people how are they, you probably don't have time to hear the full saga. But we're in a time now where we need each other. And we need to be able to lean on each other a little bit more. So to anybody in the chat, I think it was Jacqueline McIntosh, you had your hand up asking to have a word.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's only when you were saying, you know what, it's so, because I'm working still and I'm being blessed, I have still got a job. And I remember because I went to one of Charmaine's venues one time, and I always remember what she said. You always have to have two incomes coming in. And it's so easy when you say, "Oh, get a job in Tesco, get a job in this job." But the only thing is, there's so much things going. You've got the age against, you've got the amount of same people that's going for those jobs. Sometimes they're not even hiring as you. Even though they advertise it, it's hard to get these jobs. Even I'm thinking of even trying, because I do a lot of overtime even while I'm in the lockdown at home. But it's very, very stressful when you're working at home 24/7, and you've got also I've got my youngest daughter with me too. But even I'm also studying too, because I said I'm going to try and study for another course while I'm at work, because even I do work. However, they've also started talking about redundancies too. So I have to, as you said, you have to be ahead of things, which I'm trying to do. I've also tried to get like a second job, but even like when they advertise these jobs, it's the time when you're working. If you're working already a full-time job, it's hard to get a second job. So how are you meant to get a second job if you've got already a job already, but you need to have a second income? I know you say like you can go online, do online work, and
it's not easy. is a short plan. And right now, because of the time we're in, it's very concentrated. So there's a lot of people right now trying to find a second job, trying to find just a job. Forget a second job. Yeah. But the reality of the matter is, you can't do nothing. Yeah. So you have to try, and you have to look for things that will fit around you, your childcare needs, your mental health needs. Very often we don't even think about our mental health needs. So I have to ask myself, Paul, what's the balance? You know, you say you want to get out of the house and you take a job to do that, but would that really work for you? If it doesn't, then you don't. Yeah. But the reality of the matter is we're in a time now where what we were doing before doesn't work. And so you have to do something different. Yeah. That's all I can say to you. But you have to keep trying. And something else that someone mentioned as well is about finding these forums where we can have these conversations in a non-judgmental environment.
Yes.
Yeah. Because very, very much, I know when I was broke, and I'm not talking about I couldn't buy food. I was talking about broke. There was a time when I was so broke that my Brock, there you go. My brother in Jamaica had to send money via Western Union. It took them 45 minutes to find the form to send money because they had never done it that way before. Yeah, that's the level of Brock. I felt ashamed. I hadn't robbed anybody. I hadn't made any monumental mistakes, and I felt ashamed. I felt like I couldn't say anything to anybody. Yeah, I felt like I still had to pretend. And what I'm saying to us now is that, look, we need to foster these environments. And if you have a friend and you've not heard from your friend right now, I know Sherrine talked about this, don't text them, call them. How are you? How are you doing? Ask them the question, give them that opportunity, and don't be judgmental. Yep. I know we should have prepared. I know Granny told us about the rainy day, but look, we are where we are. So let's work on coming out the other side out of this now. That's it. Anybody else in the chat? You're all able to unmute yourselves now. Don't all speak at once.
Can I say something, Paul?
Of course you can.
Yeah. So in terms of myself, in terms of sitting down with people, I'm very open when I do my presentations and talk to people, and I tell people about my journey, because a lot of people are scared. People are scared, they feel embarrassed to actually make that phone call, to even make that appointment with yourself, or never feeling very vulnerable to come and sit down with you. And I often say to people, it's not a judgment zone. I'm not judging you. I'm trying to help you and give you some support and guidance to get you out of your situation. And even what you said about seeking help and support. Now, I've been somebody that has been the person that everybody goes to in my family. I'm the one that has grown up and helped everybody. So I've had to unlearn all of these things, that I can't be there for everybody. I need to get help. And some things like learning to delegate, that has taken years to do. Anybody who works with me knows that I will just do it all myself, but then it's taken years for me to say, you know what, I can't do this, let me delegate that. And it's gotten better over the years, because I've had to sit down with myself and say, Charmaine, you doing all of this is having a detrimental effect on your health. You're getting stressed out, you're losing your hair, your face is breaking out, you're putting on weight, all of it affects you physically. And sister will tell you, it does affect you, your sleep patterns. I'm like, I'll be up all night, and then in the day I'm tired because I'm stressing about certain things. And then I had to literally have a one-to-one session with myself and say, something's got to change. And that came from watching people in my family get ill. And I said, I don't want to do that. So sometimes, you know that saying, that old Jamaican saying, if you don't hear, you will feel? I had to get to that stage where I said, you know what, I'm not getting into there. And I often say to people that, let people know that you're in a vulnerable state. So I've often say to people that I've had low moods and suffer with depression, and people look at me like, oh, you get depressed? Oh, you get, I'm like, yes, I do get my low moods. And I've had to learn how to cope with these things. So sometimes people look at you as a superwoman, and then when you go to them for help, they're surprised that you're asking for help. There are people out there that are vulnerable, that need some support. And yes, pick up the phone, even if it's just listen to them rant. I have to do that on a regular basis with certain family members. All 2 hours be on the phone with them because they're trying to deal with their mental issues and all things. But sometimes you have to do that and be that lending ear. And that's why I keep doing these public presentations. That's why this People's Talk today is so important, because we need to start talking. And even if we don't have physical spaces to go to, we must do it in the virtual spaces so that people can have these conversations and talk, because we have to be the support network in the community. We have to be.
And for those who are not, those who are not sure, be aware that this is Charmaine's second Zoom for the day on very much the same topic. So she's not just saying it to gas. But I have a question for Sherrine. So a lot of the talk around COVID, has always emphasized that, you know, it's something that affects black people more. You know, they talked about our children. Even just 2 days ago, the news was that our children are more likely, if they are going to be affected by it, they're going to be affected by it more. With considering the ongoing difficulties that we as a people have always had with stepping forward for therapy, has that added to our angst and our issues around it? And are people changing a bit? Are we more likely to seek out therapy as a way forward? You know, 2 weeks ago, Eddie on his show, which comes on just before mine, he was pointing out that, look, he's stressed. He was pointing out that some of the stuff he reported on brings him stress. Now we've added COVID to it. Now I just came off his show earlier, and boy, that was intense. You know, they were talking about death and all of that. Are we coping with the day-to-day stresses better? Are we accessing therapeutic services more, or are we still in the wilderness in there?
I think what I have found is females may access the service more, but Black males still don't access the service half as much. A lot of that is to do with this theory that Black men can sort their issues out themselves, and so they don't necessarily ask for the help that they need within the service. Another thing is, you mentioned something about self-acceptance. One of the issues that I find around COVID is that we first of all have to accept that, okay, it exists and it's possible that it affects the Black community more. However, as long as we do what we need to do as individuals in order to help ourselves, then I don't think there is much else we can do except that. However, there are services out there, such as the Samaritans, who is totally anonymous. We can call them, we can express to them anything we're feeling in that moment. If we feel we really need to talk to somebody that is not in our family, or if we feel stressed or worried about anything in particular. Also, our local minds provide services, psychological services. I would advise that if you feel that you need to speak to someone, do that. Do that, because even if it's just a conversation that you're having, sometimes it helps you. Another issue I think that the Black community may have is they may feel that the therapy that they're being offered is not for them, so to speak. I would say go with no judgment. Try and see if it works. I think what I'm concerned about is that Black males in particular are not connecting with the service. I mean, and they feel that they can deal with their issues themselves, but they're not. We see them so much in services that require them to be sectioned. We see them, they are prominent in hospitals, and yet we cannot get them to step into a therapy room before they hit crisis. So first of all, we need to educate individuals, Black men and women, about what it means to be in crisis, or what it means to need help before it gets to crisis.
So we're in effect, we Black men, we're lying to ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've been lying to ourselves so much to our own detriment, because we say we can cope, we say we don't need it, but at the extreme end of the scale, we are the ones who end up getting sectioned anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's purely because whatever it is, we don't nip it in the bud. We keep it there until it explodes, and then we have a full-scale episode. I really hope that we move on from that way of thinking. I have to remind all the panelists, by the way, that you should put your details in the chat. and I will transfer them over to Facebook. Charmaine, you know where my Facebook page is. Sherrine, you know where my... David, I couldn't find you on Facebook. I don't know if that's because you deal with such mysterious things and the big ballers. Why you're not even on Facebook? You don't even need it.
No,
Marisha,
I'm only on LinkedIn. I don't do Facebook. I'm getting there gradually. I mean, I only learnt Teams on the 4th of May following a meeting. So I'm now a Teams expert. I know Teams inside out. I'm a Zoomitis. Okay, but Facebook, I'm getting there gradually. I don't really do Facebook.
Don't rush. There's nothing great over there. But for the people who are on Facebook, it's my weekly request that people do put their details under the Zoom. Sorry, I keep saying Zoom now. Under my Facebook Live, so that the people can contact them if you want them to contact them. Because trust me, these people will contact you. So if you don't want them to contact you, don't put it. Yeah, let's be crystal clear about that. Yeah. So going forward, what's next? I've said I'm not going back to normal. Yeah, because normal doesn't work. My business has picked up. We are back to pre-COVID levels, ticking along very nicely because you all have discovered online events. Online events are much cheaper, yeah, because you don't have to pay for the venue. People are flourishing it. What's next, Marisha? Going forward, what will you be talking to your clients about? Talk to us a little bit about your show. We haven't heard much about your show, so we can know where can we find it? How do we tune in?
Okay. Well, with regards to the show, it's called The Financial Style. If you are local to the Birmingham or West Midlands area, you should be able to pick us up on FM, which is 98.7 FM. If you're not, you can listen online via a number of means, TuneIn app and all of that. If you just search for the radio station, you'll get it. And if you can't listen to the show live, which is on Saturday mornings between 10 and noon, then you can hear copies of it on mixcloud.com. So if you go to mixcloud.com/financial style, and you'll find all the shows that have taken place this year. And you'll see that there's a whole host of topics that I cover, everything from work-related stuff to self-employment and being in business, to mindset and how to manage your mindset, and general tips as well for different areas, including even finances for kids. And what I would say in terms of what is next, and by the way, that's all free information, so I always encourage people to get it because it's free. Generally outside of that, you've got to pay. So get in there. But outside of that, in terms of what is next, I'd say a couple of things. So one of them is this is the time to really educate yourself about money and finance. And if you can stretch to it, the economy and how it works. And this isn't about being an economist or about becoming a financial expert, but it's about arming yourself with the knowledge and the tools that are going to help you moving forward. Here's the only guarantee that we have. Well, there's a couple of guarantees. I always say death and taxes. 2 guarantees we have. And the reality of the matter is that when we come out of this recession, in whatever way that we come out of it, the only thing we know is that there will be another one. And we don't know whether it will be next year, and we don't know whether it will be in 10 years' time, but the reality of the matter is that it will hit again. Might not be the same thing, might not be because of a pandemic, but we are going to have these dips. So when you find that you're ill-equipped for something like this, one of the best things you can do is make sure you're prepared for the next time, so you don't end up getting there the next time and thinking, gosh, I wish I'd have done X, Y, Z. So educate yourself where you can. As I say, I run an investment program. You're more than welcome to hit me up to find out a little bit more about that. It's an online program you can do in the benefit of your own home. It's 8 weeks, it's an hour each week. And at the end of those 8 weeks, you will be investing in something, because I get you started from exactly where you are. This isn't about having something different happen. It's about working towards your goals. And I would say, even if you're not interested in investment, start thinking about savings. They say the ideal amount is to have 6 months of income in a bank account somewhere at the very least. Okay, so I would say that if you're not in a position to save right now, that's understandable, but start thinking about that becoming a priority as soon as you do get back into that job or things do start to pick up again. And more than anything else, just remember that there is life after this, and not everything is about the money. But if we arm ourselves financially, then it gives us a chance to move forward in as positive a way as possible.
David, what next?
Well, whatever happens, okay, there's going to be life after lockdown. So it's about how prepared we are for the future. And I say, don't fill our heads with the negative stuff. And as Sherrine says, with the stuff in the news, okay, choose the food that you eat, because the food that you eat will nourish the body. And that includes the news as well too. And there is no going back to yesterday or before, okay? It's a new order, but making sure you're ready for that, making sure you're agile and well placed, making sure Jacqueline asked about how to get jobs and so forth. Your network, speak to people. Who are you connected to, connected with? What do you engage with? And as also Sherrine says, okay, her second point in the mindful mental health issue was keep learning. Are you developing and learning new skills? So therefore, give yourself a chance, as Charmaine says, to have multiple income streams. I like to think about earning money while you're asleep. Means like this morning, I woke up this morning and I was quite chuffed because I saw this morning on my email last night or yesterday, somebody had ordered a new book. Yeah, and that's what I like. Earning money while you're asleep. Yeah, there's no cost involved. There was no sweat involved. I woke up and, ooh, another sale. I like that. So think about how you can have...
Was it through Amazon?
No. My book's on Amazon, but it's only can be bought on my website.
Perfect, because I know Amazon, you get chips.
Yeah, because I can do what Amazon can do, we can do as well too. Okay, so I'm a great believer in being in control of me. Sadly, I'm that kind of person. So
nothing sad about it, sir. Nothing sad about it.
You know, so it's all about looking to see what's right for yourself, position yourself right for the take of multiple income streams. Okay, if the north gets blocked, the south or the east or the west, different income streams is very much important. Okay, ask yourselves, what can I do? You won't get it right first time, but as you develop, you become a master at your art. Back in May, I couldn't use Teams when my first Teams call, but now I'm a Teams expert. I run Teams courses for you now.
You know what? It's absolutely true, because what I was going to say about multiple streams of incomes, whenever I've spoken to people about multiple streams of incomes, they always seem to think it has to be something that they've done before. They always seem to, but I can't do anything. There's nothing I do. And all I'm saying is just find something, because it's always something that somebody will pay for. Yep. You would be surprised what people will pay to do because they don't know how to do. Pick up a book, go online, learn something, do something, learn a new skill. You'd be amazed. Charmaine, what's next?
For me, I'm just working on my mindset to think abundantly and making sure that I'm loving the people that are around me and looking after my family and learning to smile and laugh at, even though there's stresses in my life and stresses in the world, just learning to smile and laugh and look at the good that's in the world. I'm going to be encouraging people to recession-proof your finances. So echoing what Marissa and Derek said earlier about emergency savings funds, putting certain plans in place, multiple streams of income. If anybody's interested in a stream of income, I can talk to people about that as well. Also upskilling myself, looking at what skills are going to be needed from now on. So for example, they're saying that most of the jobs that are going are hospitality type jobs, maybe thinking about what are the next skills that people are going to need. So could be coding, sitting down and learning how to do coding, get your children involved in that as well. And just thinking positively and looking at who's in your, like what you said, looking in your network. Your network is meant to be your net worth. So who is in your network? Who can you work with? what could you do as a family? Collective buying clubs, collective investment clubs. So one person takes responsibility to email Marisha, and everybody comes together to learn about investing as a family, investing as a single person. But yeah, just thinking positive and not letting the stresses of the world get to you, and just loving life. Because remember, we've got one life to live, and life, we don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow, but just being grateful for the life that you have, even though it might not be the life that you want to have. Things may not be going as well as you want it, but just give thanks for life. And that's some of the things that I always do every day. I always give thanks for life, because I've experienced death so many times in my life. It's made me have a different mindset of how I appreciate life. So yeah, just keeping focused on my goals, focus on raising my family in the best way I can, and just having fun and living life.
Okay, thank you, Sherrine. What's next? What's next? What should our people be looking forward to next? And certainly, how can they contact you if you want them to contact you? I can't hear you. No, there you go.
Me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, what I would say is come to a place of acceptance, a place where, okay, this has happened. How can I work around it? I think it's important to have self-compassion as well, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. And that's for all of us. We have to remember that we are important as individuals. Our self-care is very important, especially with people with busy lives. And stop the all or nothing thinking. Yeah, it doesn't have to work in this particular way in order for you to make a success of it. Yeah, so I would just shout self-care and 5 ways to well-being.
Just repeat the 5 ways for us.
Connect, talk to someone, keep learning, exercise, and that could take it in any form you wish. Give your time to others, and take notice, which is mindfulness, meditation, yoga. Take notice of what is happening. Smell a flower, as I explained before. Hug a tree.
I know you're jibing at me with that hug a tree thing, because me and David are just cracking up. Yeah. First of all, that's had to be a hell of a big tree. Look, guys, I know you all have some very, very busy days. I know Marisha has engagements later. I know Sherrine, you're indulging in a big educational project right now. Charmaine, what a trooper. I know this is your second one for the day. Me and David, we don't really have anything for them. Yeah, we don't have anything to do. Me and David just coasting, we don't bother shave and all them thing there. Yeah, my beard just grow like this naturally. So it's been absolutely fantastic that you guys have joined me and spent some time speaking, and more importantly, that you have shared your details for people, because this is part of our mindfulness, being able to give of ourselves and to help people who to reach out. And what I'm hoping is that every show I do, that people will reach out and connect and try and improve. I don't think there's ever going to be anything called normal again, and I don't think we should be striving for this so-called normal. I think that COVID has happened, and in 20 years' time, we'll have gone through 3-4 more different things, and we'll just be shaking stuff off. I think it's been a great time for people to assess, to look around them, to see the structures they have around them, and hopefully people like Marisha, David, Charmaine, your businesses will flourish tremendously, because people will get the message. They will get the message, that preparation. I remember when Marissa was talking about having 6 months money down, I have to log that, because my thinking always was 3 months. But I'm going to upgrade. I'm going to add 3 to 6 and make it 9 months. So that's my saving goal. No, I take no chances, David. Look, I tell you, I put a lot of strategies in place to make sure that were the worst to happen. So I have no credit. I don't have credit. For reasons I won't go into. There was a time when I wasn't allowed credit. So but you put things in place. But certainly we have to start to be smarter with our money, and we have to start to look about this. And I remember the days when you used to say to people, multiple streams of income. They thought you were talking about multi-level marketing, and they put up the sign of the cross, and they would all go weird. And we came from a generation of people who thought, you know, that 9 to 5, it was great. It was very noble to have the 9 to 5, and you did your service, you worked for the gold watch, and then you died, and you know they sent the flowers to your wife or your husband, and it was all good. That's gone. The reality of the matter is there's no such thing as a job for life. We now know that there are some employers who will happily scale down and use COVID as an excuse. We also know that there are some employers who simply were not prepared, and they're going to have to scale down anyway. Pret just dropped 7,000 people because no one's returning to the city centers. We have no interest of going back ever. Yeah. This is our new reality. And if we're going to make the best of it for our children and our grandchildren who are going to come anyway, we have to adopt, adapt, and change. Only constant must be change. So I'm pleased that we had this show today. I'm hoping that someone out there got something good from the program, got a bit of upliftment, a bit of encouragement. You are not alone, you know, and I think when I was going through struggles, one of the things was this feeling of loneliness. Guys, you're not alone. Yeah, some of the people you see flossing, they must struggle too. Yeah, they're just keeping a good stiff upper lip, as the English do. Talk to someone, reach out to someone. There's at least 4 people, that's me, Charmaine, Sherrine, and Marisha, on this call who you can reach out to. I'm not so sure about David, but we'll work on him. These are people who will help you, people who will reach out to and you can help. And there's probably people closer to you than you think. But I'm going to close by saying the last essential point. Ask for help. Ask for help. Seek it out.